Recién puse esta cuestión bien y ahora sí. Sí. Sí, pero déjame conectar el Instagram. Sí, pero pues.
Santiago Wilson.
Ya, José, sí.
Estamos esperando a Paula.
¿A quién? ¿Ya? Ya.
Ahí viene. Muy buenos días a todas y a todos los presentes, autoridades, académicos y amigos profesionales que hoy nos acompañan en este especial día para la Escuela de Diseño UCE. En nombre de la Facultad de Arquitectura, Diseño y Estudios Urbanos de la Universidad Católica de Chile, el Laboratorio de Innovación Pública UCE, el Centro de Desarrollo Urbano Sustentable, CEDEUS, les damos la más cordial bienvenida a la conferencia Legal Proximity, Ideas for the Field of Care, a cargo del destacado académico e investigador EZIO Manzini. Queremos comenzar saludando especialmente a las autoridades que están presentes hoy con nosotros. A Martín Girón, director del Escuela de Diseño UCE, a Ignacio Larraza, director del Centro de Políticas Públicas, a Ramón Molina, director del Centro de Innovación UCE, a Miguel Guzmán, coordinadora nacional del área de diseño y servicios creativos del Ministerio de la Cultura, a Paola Girón, nuevamente nos acompaña, directora del Consejo Nacional de Desarrollo Territorial, a Ricardo Estupia y a Sagai, investigadores del Centro de Ciudades. También saludamos a decanos, a escuelas y facultades, universidades públicas, al director de la Escuela de Arquitectura de Chani, también nos acompaña, le agradecemos mucho, es muy importante generar vínculos. A ese estudiante y académicos que nos aportan con sus ciencias. EZIO Manzini es considerado uno de los principales y más influyentes pensadores del diseño contemporáneo. Desde hace más de 3 décadas, EZIO trabaja en el campo del diseño para la sostenibilidad y la innovación social. En esta perspectiva, fundó tesis, una red internacional de escuelas de diseño activas en el campo del diseño para la innovación social y la sustentabilidad. Actualmente es presidente de la red tesis y profesor honorario de Comité de Economía. Ha sido profesor invitado en varias escuelas de diseño a nivel mundial en la última década, por ejemplo, en Basada, en Barcelona, Tonji en China, Shanghái también en China, la Universidad de las Artes en Londres, CPUT en Ciudad Cabo, en Parsons en Nueva York y otras. Para comenzar, hará uso de la palabra el director de la Escuela de Diseño de la Universidad Católica, profesor Martín Tirón.
En primer lugar, quiero saludar a las autoridades, pero a todas las autoridades y directores de escuelas presentes. Quiero también saludar a todos los estudiantes, a todas las personas que nos acompañan esta mañana. Quiero también agradecer a CEDEOS por su actividad. Me gustaría aprovechar esta ocasión en la que EZIO Manzini nos hablará de la necesidad de avanzar hacia escenarios de proximidad habitable para compartir algunas reflexiones. Quiero referirme a ciertas dimensiones que me parecen importantes en el pensamiento más reciente de Manzini. Son dimensiones que a mi juicio son de absoluta relevancia para lidiar con los tiempos que corren, con los tiempos de déficit de futuros que proliferan entre discursos catastrofistas y discursos tecnosolucionistas. En primer lugar, me parece importante destacar que el pensamiento de Manzini no solamente le habla al mundo del diseño, sino que logra conectar y articular preocupaciones que cruzan múltiples campos, como la sociología, la arquitectura, los estudios urbanos y, por qué no decirlo, el escenario de crisis multisistémicas más que nunca trabajar en torno a problemas complejos que no resisten una sola mirada o una sola solución. Me parece que el pensamiento de Manzini es justamente una invitación a ir más allá de los modelos revolucionistas de pensamiento, para involucrarse en miradas integrativas y policromáticas que navegan en registros diversos, que no le temen a la mezcla epistémica. Sin ir más lejos, el diagnóstico que vienen haciendo diferentes autores es la de cierta incapacidad de pensamiento actual para reutilizar alternativas al modelo dominante, producto de una expansión de la hiperespecialización que impide miradas sistémicas para reimaginar alternativas reales y viables. Bueno, el pensamiento de Manzini es un ejemplo de esta suerte de indisciplina a la hora de pensar los problemas. En segundo lugar, el pensamiento de Manzini tiene cierta jovialidad, cierto sentido de esperanza. En estos tiempos turbulentos, inciertos, necesitamos convergencia. De cierta manera, Manzini nos invita a concebir el diseño como una herramienta de creación de sentido, y no solamente de productos y de cosas. El diseño como mecanismo para materializar y testear nuevos idearios, nuevos modos de estar en el mundo, que quizás son insospechados, y avanzar de esta manera hacia espacios más sustentables y justos. Y es que no parece sostenible seguir pensando la ciudad y su planificación exclusivamente desde las lógicas de los reguladores o desde las inmobiliarias que proyectan el entramado desde arriba, y urge comenzar a imaginar otras formas de coproducción del urbano, cuestión que el trabajo de Manzini nos impugna a observar, a reconocer y a mirar. Y el diseño, alejándose de esas soluciones cerradas, definitivas y finales, tiene esa capacidad justamente de prototipar, de testear, de generar intervenciones abiertas que permitan probar procesos emergentes, activar esas transiciones hacia espacios más equitativos y sustentables. Acá el diseño no solamente sirve para responder a necesidades preexistentes, sino también como un medio para anticipar ciertos escenarios, reconociendo que los futuros están siempre en disputa desde un presente. Finalmente, me parece que es fundamental la invitación que hace Manzini a pensar la ciudad desde el cuidado, desde el tema de su charla, desde la atención hacia los otros, sean estos humanos o no humanos. Diseñar para el cuidado puede sonar un contrasentido en un momento donde prima la lógica SMART, la exacerbación de la optimización y la producción en todos los campos. Pero como Manzini y varios otros autores lo están sosteniendo, el desafío está en comenzar a diseñar futuros que reconozcan que sin cuidado no hay ciudad, no hay tejido social que persiga. El cuidado, por lo tanto, no es tan solo la reivindicación de las labores invisibles, o las labores domésticas que producen muchas personas en la ciudad, sino que también la noción de cuidado articula un marco de convivencia fundamental para la dimensión urbana que involucra un conjunto de actividades colectivas e individuales, afectivas y materiales que realizamos para mantener y reparar la vida. Muchas gracias, EZIO, por la visita a la Escuela de Diseño y por empujarnos a rediseñar los modos de vida sostenible que dominan en nuestro tiempo. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Martín. Quisiera dar un especial saludo al profesor Luis Fuentes, que yo lo había visto acá, el director del Instituto Urbano, que también me acompaña. Luis, bienvenido. Muy importante que esté acá. Gracias. A continuación vamos a dejar a EZIO, quien presentará su charla Vive Proximity, pero quisiera dar un aviso. Esta charla, esta actividad va a ser seguida por un panel de conversación moderado por Mariana Figueiras del Laboratorio de Innovación Pública, y donde estarán también comentando una serie de casos, junto con EZIO, la ahora Leisa Garis, directora del Laboratorio de Cambio Social y fundadora de Su Vida, el profesor Ricardo Tungen, que va a participar en el Centro de Desarrollo Urbano Sustentable. Así que los invitamos a quedarse con nosotros toda esta jornada. Después de la charla de EZIO, va a haber un coffee break, y alrededor de las 12:30 vamos a comenzar con este panel, donde se van a presentar 3 casos y vamos a poder tener espacio también para conversar. Así que, EZIO, bienvenido, welcome, 10 minutos.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, all the other people and the one that I met yesterday. The few things that I know about Chile comes from what I learned yesterday. So this is a kind of premise that is necessary. So what I'm going to tell comes from an experience that is mainly from Italy and Europe, but also North America, China, a little bit Brazil, but not Chile until now. So I leave up to you to interpret. So please be tolerant, because I cannot have the sensitivity of what is really at the stake in this moment. And secondly, okay, the second issue that is my voice. My plane was, when I arrived the day before yesterday, it was really chilly. And when I wake up in the morning, landing in Santiago, I was a little bit sick. But I'm confident to arrive to the end of this speech. There should be around half an hour in the way to leave the space for you to interact and for me to learn something. And finally, a prejudice is something that was not prepared in my original presentation, but came from a conversation that we had yesterday. Because we want to talk about cities, but I'm not an architect, I come from design background. So I'm not properly speaking an architect, and not properly speaking a planner. So why, if I'm not an architect and not a planner, I dare to say something about the city and the city making. So let me say something about this very shortly. As we all know, and we always say, the city is probably the most complex artifact that human being has generated. And we can look at it by different point of view. So there is a very normal point of view, that is to look at the city, as we say, from the helicopter or from the airplane. And what you see is this. And for sure, this image, if you look at the right one and the left one, gives you a lot of information. So you can know a lot of the city looking from the airplane. And this is mainly what the planners do. So how you can have an impact on the city, especially if you look at the maps, that is metaphorically this helicopter view. But the city, normally by people, are not seen from the airplane. Normally the city are seen from inside. So normally we have a journey in the city in which we have the experience of the city. And the city seen from inside show us something that is totally 100% part of the construction of the city. So the construction of the city, the existence of the city, is done by many different interventions, some that are better represented looking from far away, and something that to see them, you have to be inside. Please keep in account the seeing inside do not mean strictly local. Because if I take this example from the center of this underground, you don't see only the underground. You see also who populated the city. You see also how the undergrounds work, how the infrastructures work. So, of course, they are very diverse. We see something that is very diverse if we look from outside, if we look from inside. But it's not that in one case we have the big scale and the other case we have the small scale. This issue of the big and small scale is another kind of story that is not interesting for me in this moment. What is interesting for me in this moment is that if we look from inside, and this is only to say that I put this very nice image from Barcelona, but for the 90% of the people, the journey of the city is much more something like this, of course. So what we see is what really people see from inside. So in some way, people have been accustomed also to look from the airplane because we have been trained. But it's not the experience that we do. The experience that we do is to be really inside. So if we want to be, as also yesterday we discussed on this issue, if we want to be terrestrial, so if you want to be down to earth, as we are trying to understand what it means, the main point of view is from inside, because you are part of the system that includes yourself. So the system is everything that composes the system, plus yourself that are navigating in the system. And this, what you see around you, is an ecosystem of products, service, digital devices, animal, other biological and non-biological agents. All this is a city. And this is why, in my view, I've been really what is really meaningful to say that we have a city making that is much more than the city planning. That includes, of course, the city planning, this is very important, but include all those other infrastructure, all those other elements that constitute the city. And this has to be designed. Of course, I will not pretend that to be designed by, inverted commas, the designer is me, but also the architects are designers and the planners are designers in some way. So there are a multiplicity of people that have to play a role in making the city. And here we are. So I will now try to tell you where I am. I have not said, I've been shortly said by, I've been not so shortly, I've been said by Jose, by Martin. I normally deal with social innovation and design for social innovation. I do it since 15 years at least now, and I'm still enthusiastic of what I see in social innovation. But at this moment, it's not as it was 20 years ago. So many things changed. So what I'm going to present today is not the history of what happened in these 15 years, but it's more or less where we and people as me are arrived. Let's start from here. Many of you are architects, and also the ones that are not architects probably know this image. I dare to say that this has been dramatically one of the most influential images, because this was Le Corbusier, and he was showing how the city should be. And they should be like this, because this would be more hygienic, because the pre-modern society was considered not hygienic without the quality of hygiene, more efficient, because everything was thought as a kind of machine, where everything has to work. And what you see now is that, okay, this maybe could be also hygienic, and by a certain point it could also be, but 1 century ago, when it had been prepared, people, at least the most advanced people, the most progressive people, was enthusiastic. They said, this is beautiful. I cannot ask which one of you now, but what we see now is a desert. There is nobody around. There are only machines that you can see. So you see how ideologies can be strong, because it generates an image that everybody recognizes as a very powerful image that has shaped, not in such a inverted comma beautiful way, but all the new part of the city and the world, included now for hundreds of millions in China, are built in this way, or at least a compromise in between this way and some economical necessity. But the image has been extremely powerful in determining what could be or should be at the time the future of the city. And this idea was so strong that I can say we used all our knowledge, all our organizational capabilities, all our design capabilities to do what? At the end of the day, to permit people to do things without being nearby. So you could live in a certain place, have your family maybe in another place, have your work maybe in another place, have your leisure, etc., etc. So it has been built. Why? Not because it was not so nasty. The idea was a certain idea of freedom. So you will be free to live wherever you want, because in any case, you can move from one place to the other. And so you recompose the unity of your life, taking your car or taking whatever, and jumping from what? From one monological zone to other monological zone. And the planner knows very well what it is. It is that the city that before was very complicated, interlinked in between the different networks or different activity started to be separated in zones. And therefore you have the plan for the zoning. And the zoning means places in which you have only one function. That could be high-rise residential, that could be spread residential, that could be the industrial one, that could be the business one, that could be the entertainment, and so on and so forth. So the city was not anymore this kind of street interaction between different functions, but it was a place where everything was done somewhere with a different motivation. And it was supposed that the people had to move to one to the other one, because at the end the people had to rebuild the continuity of their own life. 1 century now, after 1 century, we know that this was some very dangerous situation. I would say some disaster. And the most evident one is the pollution, because the people who move from one place to the other one, of course, have a consumption of energy and production of powders and pollution, etc. And this is why even who is living with cities for environmental reasons are now talking about rediscovering proximity for, strictly speaking, environmental motivation. And this is very important, even though I will not talk so much on this part, because in my view it's quite evident. But at the same time, and it could be evident or not, this kind of situation generated a weakening, a disastrous weakening of the social fabric. And nowadays, many people talk of loneliness as pandemic. So the number of people that are alone is growing exponentially. And this loneliness as disease as problem by many different points of view that maybe not of them are so clear or so evident. Of course, there is a psychological, because at the end of the day, we are social animals. So we like to live in a community, in societies. And this is the most obvious. But it's also a medical issue, because if the people is alone, it's very difficult to organize a health service, keeping account of each one, especially if they are old, especially if they have chronic disease. And you should take care of more people than is unimaginable, because we become the most part of the population. And this because once upon a day, a certain kind of care was given by the family and was given by the neighbors. In the moment in which you don't have any more neighbors and you have less and less families, how the social services for health can manage such huge amount of people. I would say also the political one, because, okay, this will be discussable, but my opinion is that if we have in many societies, I hope for you not, but I can assure you this happens in Europe and also in America, there is a growing fear. People have much more fear than what is the reality of the risk. And in my view, and the point of view of many people, this fear comes from the fact that they feel alone. Because it's different to be a group that face what can happen time by time, or to feel to be totally alone. So this was only to very shortly touch the fact that the weakening of the social fabric generate a pandemic of loneliness, and the pandemic of loneliness generate problems, psychological, medical, social, and political also. So if this is true, we should in some way to think to the opposite. So how we can use our knowledge, our capability, our technology, instead of how to organize ourselves to be in distance, how to organize ourselves to be nearby and to do things nearby. And just to have an idea of what proximity means, maybe some of you know this one. It's a very famous fresco that is in Siena. I'm lucky enough to live nearby. that place. And you see a little bit idealized, but a pre-modern city, by the point of view of who made this drawing, well managed. This is called the good government. And what you see, there are some elements that are interesting. You see that there are a certain density, and most importantly, a high level of diversity. So you don't need only density, you need also diversity. Why they need the density or diversity is very obvious, because at that time, the conference that I'm doing will have no sense, because there will be no other way to organize yourself than being nearby, included me and who produce the product that I need, me and who is, if I am rich, my servant, and the servant with who is your Lord. And therefore there was this kind of mixture in between a group of people, social level, different activities, that what made this environment something that we can call a livable proximity. So livable proximity means that you can stay more or less until you want in the system of proximity, so something that we can decide is 10, 15 minutes away from where you are, finding more or less what you need. Of course, recalling this story and looking to this image of 500 years ago, it's clear to everybody that we cannot go back to this one. This is sure. But I think, and this is my proposal, that the idea of this density and this diversity is what has to be reproduced in the new livable system. The problem is how we generate today, which characteristics this new kind of proximity system, how we can generate today a livable proximity that could keep some element that was from the past, but of sure has to be keep in account that we are in a totally different condition. So, in some way, I could say, okay, this is more than introductions. This is the story that says why some people, as me, and luckily I'm not the only one, are talking about the fact that the city has to be rethought as with a main guideline, this one of proximity. But before going on, we have to keep in account that this idea, that of course you can like it or not, but also for who like it, is not the only one. And therefore, when we talk about the city, we have to be clear that there are different scenarios in competition. And so we should have a sufficiently clear idea of what we want, not to create a mess with other scenarios. For instance, maybe people see this picture and like this picture. We can say in smart and green city, so this is commercialized. But have a look, beyond a little bit of greenery, beyond the fact that the vehicles are more modern, is exactly the same of the one that they will use. There is nothing different. And therefore, this is not the idea of a new city. This is the idea that with a lot of technology, we can take the old idea of the city of distance and make it smart and green. And so people can relax and wait for the technology to solve all the problem. I would say, at least in Europe, when you talk about the future of the city, the most of the money still go in this direction. It's called greening, the greening of the city, regeneration of the city, but the idea is what I try to explain now. In parallel to this, we have another scenario that is emerging that has no one clear vision, But in this scenario that I call everything at home and everything from home. So the proposal that could be a dream or could be a nightmare, that you are not to preoccupate. You will be able to do everything without moving from where you are at home. So in some way somebody would say, okay, this is not a 10 million city, this is the 0 million city, but it's not a city. It's not a city anymore. It's many boxes, one near to the other ones, but everything that we consider the city and the quality of the city and the city and the place in which society regenerate and new ideas come up do not happen because everybody do the most of what they have to do from home and they receive the most that they need to live from home. So when we say, and I go on in my story, we want a city of proximity, and people say, but you think that the future will be the city of proximity? This is very important in my view, to give the right answer. The city of proximity, and this is what I'm going to try to prove in the next 10 minutes, is possible. The city of proximity has some prototype, but it's fighting. It's not for sure. It's, I would say, I am professional optimist being a designer, but I'm not sure if you will win. And it depends from all of us if us will agree with this story. So, and we, especially in the university, we have to be very attentive to see what are the reference scenario to which different proposals are presented. So we have to try to decodify the image in the proposal to understand if they are really bringing toward a new kind of city, that in my wording is based on proximity, or not. In any case, it exists. So it's not the invention of myself or some other friend of mine. So looking around, we see something, as I will show. In any case, what we mean in the legal proximity, probably you have understood, but very shortly, it's a city in which everything you need, if you want, you can find it a few minutes walk or bicycle from home. The strength, in my view, of this scenario is a super clear. So you have not to explain so much to make people understand what it is. Unfortunately, for all the reasons I said before, the fact that this is very clear and very simple to be understood do not mean that it's easy to be done, because the overall infrastructure has been designed in a different way. But this idea, if it is done, implies less traffic, less CO2, less stress for the people that are to spend a lot of time moving in the city. And if you have to travel less, you have more time opportunity. So it's not only the street is being an environmental issue. There is also a kind of gift that you give to the people, or 1 hour or 2 hours, depending on the time, precious time, in which you are not to spend the time packed in the bus or in the traffic. But as you know, as also I anticipate, the word proximity means also something else. It do not mean also only the physical proximity, it means also a relational proximity. So the fact that we in some way are open to the other one, the fact that we have a sense of empathy for the other one. And therefore, the livable proximity is the proximity where it's possible and probable that people start conversation, because they're living in the same place and doing a lot of what they live for the life in the same place. They have much more opportunity to intersect and to start some conversation, to have the possibility from this conversation to move to some dialogue, and from the dialogue to work doing something together. And therefore, proximity is also potentiality of more empathy, more social integration, and more sense of mutual closeness. And as you see, this brings us what was the beginning of my story, that is proximity helps in reweaving the social fabric. Now, this is an image. Where are we?
20 minutes.
Huh?
20 minutes.
20 minutes more? So now, for us, at least for me and the designer as me, there is a difference between a vision and a scenario. And I have shortly to tell you the difference. The vision is to imagine something that can be imagined also by an artist, a filmmaker, whomever. But as a filmmaker, you don't ask if what he or she proposed could be done. You take simply, and could be extremely powerful, an image that maybe can influence your life. But this image do not say how the things is going to be, could be. The scenario is an image, but an image that somebody who generates the scenario, that is the designer, has to say how, at least in principle, it could be done. So it's not given that it will be done, but you try to give some strategies that permit to make it happen. So this is the difference moving from an image to a scenario. So what I showed until now was an image. And what I'm going to tell now is why, in my view, it's not only an image, but it could be a scenario. And maybe there are other motivations. For me, there are at least three main motivations that say it could be possible, that are what happened in these 20 years that is called international social innovation, something that is happening in the public policies that we can also call institutional innovation, and what we designers in general have learned after 2 decades of trying to make something happen. So if we put them together, as I said, it's not, of course, unfortunately, it's not sure, but it's possible. So if it do not happen, it's because we are not strong enough, but it could happen. So what is the social innovation? I know that some of you know it very well, some of you maybe not, so I have to say 2 or 3 words. In any case, the social innovation for me, this can be discussable, is the building block of the scenario. So there will be the possibility to talk about the scenario proximity in the way that I'm doing now, and has been done, as we will see, by many people much more important than me, is because something happened. Because the idea per se maybe could be there also 50 years ago or 1 century ago, but then something happened that said, oh look, maybe we could have a contemporary scenario. And this is, for me, what happened in the city, the social innovation. So a whole community of people, and this is an issue not giving names, observed at the beginning of this century that some people against the mainstream to be super individualistic and in competition one with the other ones started to do something together. So the core of the story, this is also my little story, is looking around, making the work that they do, say, oh look, but there are people that are doing not what the media, also the mainstream sociologists was saying that was the main trend of the society, that you can summarize in the individualization and the competition, but they were doing something differently. So they could, here it depends from place to place, it could be different, but you can have people that instead of being in their family boxes separated one from the other one, started to try to share some services in between them. You find people that instead of waiting only for the professional service, started to help each other in community welfare. We can have a rethinking about agriculture that is not only the biological, but also the link in between the farm and the countryside. That is called the community supported farming. We can have also in some way also a different idea of production that could be based on different collaborative way of making manufacture. And we can continue, and practically, at least in my experience, but this, as I said, it's not only an experience in Europe, it's an experience also in other place. Maybe not here, but in other place. We can find that practically in every area of daily life. We can find, maybe not so many, it's not mainstream, but we can find, and if some people is capable to do it, it's totally diverse. Let's say, EZIO Manzini tells that maybe we could have a collaborative living. If I tell it, okay, this is your dream. I can say, no, but there are some people that are being capable to do it. So in some way, they generate prototype of different way of doing things. A prototype. Here is the prototype. So what they have in common, I already said, the collaboration, and this is, in my view, the basis of everything, because modernity has been defined as the society that individualizes everybody. So if you say, but there are people that choose to collaborate, they are breaking the mainstream. And care, our society are called careless society. For some reason that we can discuss later if you like, it's very important for me. Our society progressively lost that capability that is of attention, of empathy in relation to other people, in relation to the environment, that is, in my view, at the basis of so many problems that we have. Those people, small groups if we want, but are people that have redefined the possibility of taking care one or the other ones. And proximity, in the moment in which there was people that was saying that there are no places anymore. Maybe some of you remember this very famous book. There was no places. There's only floor, no places. Those people are in places, are rooted in places. They do something for their places. So they reintroduce the fact that it is important also to be physically and emotionally close to each other. And so it's a way they help in regenerating the community of place. If this was a lecture on, I have to tell you what happened afterwards, because what I said until now could also be said 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but let's say that from that moment to today, what changed is that at that moment there was only constellations of these more ideas, and now we start to have larger visions. And in between some larger visions, we are also the one of the city of proximity. So in some way, the city of proximity emerged with the strength that it has, thanks to the fact that for 20 years, something happened in the city that showed that it was possible to live in a different way. And this, in my view, is not enough to give to this perspective the possibility to win, but it has been enough to take an idea that maybe, as I said before, was around since 1 century, but it became much more visible, and for what is interesting going now, we started to have some institutions that recognize it. So some institutions, not all the institutions again, some minorities, some heroes that recognize that something was happening into the society that could be good for the city, and a good institution should be capable in some way to recognize and to support it. And here, I will be very fast now, but we can talk later. There is a very often discussed issue about the top-down and the bottom-up. Today, after 20 years, we can say that sometimes, often at least in my experience, have been bottom up. So somebody did something and the institution recognized it. But it could also be top down. So somebody decided to create a frame in which it's possible that something happens. But something has to happen afterwards. So in some way, after something has to be there. So, okay, this has been already been said. And to give you the idea of the difference, so this issue about what the policymaker can do to promote the city of proximity, I could give you several examples. I give you two of them that, if possible, are the two polarity of the spectrum of possibilities, and the both, in my view, are interesting. And case by case, it can be seen what would be the best. For instance, if we are in Milano, I would say until now, in Milano, there is not a very clear policy about proximity, and not also a very clear policy about social innovation. Here and there you can find something, but it's not the one flag of the city. But it happened that in some place, and here I take one example, this is the neighborhood in Milano, it's called Nolo, it will be very quick. And at a certain point we had group of citizens that became active. We can find that they started to generate some, to organize themselves, to transform the streets and the square around the school, to give to the kids, maybe they do also here, with who is architect and planner now with this intervention, tactical planning, so to transform the use of the square in the way that the kids can get out from the school and to find a children-friendly place. They started to also organize themselves to help in cleaning the place. Going the direction, they started to organize some parties in the streets, in the front of the old home, and this spread in some way from the beginning to many. And they choose, this is it's not so good to be seen, but it's the municipal market that, as all this neighborhood market was in crisis, and they, without changing, so it's still a market, but they started to create a community hub and to have other kind of cultural activities inside, and they put a radio inside, and there is also an office of the Polytechnic inside to develop this kind of project, as I'm telling you. So, what is this? All of this has been started by a group of people. But in the case of Milano, they have been so clever to understand the value of what these people were doing, and as opposed to, in some way, resist with this activity. When the activity started, they helped it to succeed. So we have a typical bottom-up initiative with a very good, in my view, capability to understand it and to help the process and to permit to work. If we go now to Paris, and here I put the mayor because this is really done by the mayor. This is the project of the mayor that has been elected with a program that is called the La Ville de Quart d'Heure, the city of the 15 minutes. And in some way, what they did a frame, that is the city of the 50 minutes, in which they changed a little bit the meaning of the different services. So the office of the mayor in the different neighborhoods are transformed in something like this. That is not only office, it's also a kind of bar. The school, we call it the capital of the neighborhoods, and they see how to use the garden and whatever what is not used as a center for the neighborhood. The library, again, also the library that are spread in the city become not only the place where you go to take the books, but a center in which many different kinds of cultural military activities can happen. I could go on, but I think that you understand. In this case, it has been a decision from the mayor that generated a condition in which it was possible to have this kind of thing happening. In my view, also in this case, would not be possible if also in Paris we have not had 20 years of different kinds of experimentation. So not exactly the one that I showed, but something happened in the city. So the people had a vague idea of what they was talking about. And was it finished? So if this is what can happen, what design can do. Of course, I cannot go in detail, but I will summarize in some main guidelines, if you want, that are this one. So distribute means bring everything the most near to the people that is possible. It means adopt the more that is possible what they are called distributed system, in which you bring the services and actions nearer that is possible to the people. And this in a distributed way in the territory, so that not to create differences in between some areas that are more rich of social resources and some areas that are poorer. Socialize, but it's not enough to bring these services near to the people, but as for instance, it was very visible in the Paris case, you had to create around that the municipal service, that the library, that school, a network of networks to create a platform that permit to many people to find opportunities to do something together. So the service gives some more dry service, but around the services you can create some platform for collaboration. Facilitate is when we say the people could be active, both in designing and in managing something, it's easy to be said, but it's not easy to be done, because for me, everybody has the capability to design. But you can be an expert or not, you can have exercised this capability or not. So we can design methods and tools that help the co-design process step by step, and there is a lot to be done. And finally, of course, it's different if the people that participate is relatively knows what the project, and therefore you can create some schools. At least in some places, also in Italy, we have the neighborhood school, that are the school where people that have some ideas can go there and it's helpful to support it, to also very simple idea. So to learn how to develop some projects. To finish, this is really the end. Of course, each one of the different lines, as I said, must and could be developed, but I hope to have given you the flavor, at least, that there is a lot to be done. But as conclusion, I like to show you this answer to this question. Everything was about collaboration, and collaboration is a human interaction. And the human interaction cannot be designed. So paradoxically, or it could appear a paradox, I spent 1 hour of my time and your time about the issue about promoting collaboration, and now I end up saying, yes, but collaboration cannot be designed because it's something that is related to human relationship, and luckily the human relationship cannot be designed. But nevertheless, I use this image. Of course, nobody can design what will happen of these couples. Maybe they don't like it, maybe they marry, maybe they have a nice dog, who knows? But the possibility of having this personal relationship could not happen if you don't have a favorable context. So if they have to dance, they have to have a place where it's possible to dance. And you need, and it's not a minor issue, you are to be capable to dance. Because you can have the place and the music, but if you are not capable to dance, you don't dance. So these, in my view, are the three main lines on which we can work. Because in which it's not mandatory, but it's possible to collaborate. And the city of distance is a context in which it's impossible to collaborate. We can stimulate conversation. So a designer, for instance, is also a little bit an artist, or somebody that is provocative. Enter in the story too, because it can generate something that breaks the normal ideas. So if the music is what starts the conversation, make people do something together. And finally, we can have in many different ways. Schools, I'm not thinking formal schools, but some way to help people as a kind of civic capability to be a little bit more conscious of what does it mean, not the designer as a profession, but the attitude of designing. What is the design approach? Because this could be very helpful for everybody. I think that this is really helpful. And this is advertisement, so okay, thank you.
Tenemos tiempo para un par de preguntas antes de ir al break. Pueden hacerla en español y pueden ser traducidas. Thank you very much for your presentation. So, social interaction requires all the things you mentioned. So we need space, right? We need to design space. We need to design cities to induce this interaction, right? But there's something which I believe is harder to use, and it is the use of time. Time is, I would say, the most important resource for social interaction. And in a society where productivity is an obsession, and in academia we know that very well. What's your perception of the likelihood of achieving these cities if we don't have a society where leisure time is valued in a way differently from what it is now, and where productivity is not considered such an important thing?
Thank you. I think that all the questions that could be raised, this is the most central and tough one. And you're right, and probably there is no solution. And probably we have the crash in between two ways of building your image of the world. And probably, quoting another friend of ours, this is Arturo Escobar, we could have what he called the contact zone in between two different ways of being. So the way of being in which is important effectiveness is also important. So we cannot delete it from our life. We cannot simply say, oh, very good not to be effective very often. At the same time, interaction, and especially, I've not spoken so much, but interaction of care. Everybody that takes care for somebody seriously knows the care cannot be compressed. the time of care cannot be shrinked. And therefore, we have probably to understand, to learn how to live in this interaction in between the two different worlds. And we can do our best to try to develop models, a way of doing things that permits to have some interactions with time and care, living together with others that probably for a long time, or maybe forever, will be based on effectiveness. I don't know if this is an answer to tell with different words what was your question. And the only that says that in my view, we had one of the things in the transition that we had to learn. We had to learn with the both and to recognize the value of this side of working with the time that cannot be compressed with another time, and how to make them together. How we can happen? I think that there is no only one strategy, and maybe I don't know, because something has to be thought, but just to say something that was in the discussion that we had coming here. A good craftsman do not care for time, if it is a real good craftsman. Because the craftsman, in the definition of which I said it, is the one that do things because the quality of what is good. And I like a lot. There are a lot of people that call themselves craftsmen, but in reality, for this definition, they are not craftsmen. It's very simple. There is no other solution. So it has to be more costly. So we imagine that if you want something that is real craft, you have to be a craft. You have to be prepared. Maybe you buy less other things and you buy something by this point, this kind of thing. You can have voluntary actions. We can have economy that meets the market action, market economy with the voluntary action, and third sector, how you call it here. So the role of the third sector, all the NGOs, all the associations, should be to develop how they can manage to put together some interface that has to be effective with another interface that has to admit this kind of care. So these are very small ideas. But the issue is really a very tough one. Thank you.
I would like to know what have you learned since yesterday about Santiago, because I think I can read that in your books. And I would like to know what have you experienced? What do you see behind the scenes of that, the image that you have formed from the airport to your vacation? And what questions arise from that scene that you have been seeing?
Sí, hay que prenderlo, José. Sí, hay que prenderlo.
Sorry. Not only I arrived the day before yesterday night, I was also sick. I learned a lot about my hotel. It was beautiful. And I had a very nice conversation with the group of teachers here and with the group of these design policy there. And the rest is 3 blocks from my hotel to here on foot. In that one, no, this is maybe, my answer will be stupid just to make later, this central part, what I can say what I also said to Jose. If I had closed my eyes in Florence when I started, and I arrived in that place, asked me, where are you? I will not be able to say. So Chile, for some reason, not Chile, sorry, Santiago, the neighbors of Santiago de Chile were big, the neighbors of Santiago de Chile were big, for me could be whatever. So I had nothing, so they are stereotyped, but maybe if you are in Bogota, or if you are in Rio, they have something that makes you feel where you are. In this case, no. This is not bad, this is not good. It's up to you to decide if you like this or not. But this is, you ask me and I answer. At the same time, I had an experience with two groups of professors and teachers here. There seems to be a little bit living into different worlds. Because the group of yesterday afternoon, the discussion was in relation to what I tell you today, much more theoretical on what does it mean a design for the planet. That is congratulations, because it's a very important issue that has to be discussed today. And if your school is pushing in this direction, nothing to object more. Very, very important. But let's say the discussion was really very theoretical about what is the meaning of this term. When we discussed it with the people working in this beautiful policy, design policy lab, it was so precise, so deeply inside the issue and the problems, that was really, I had a very large vision of what is happening here. And what I understood on the first side is that this is something that I know that the South American, sorry if I put you together with the South American, maybe you don't like, but the South American frequently like to make theories, to make big theories. So there was nothing strange that we spent 2 interesting hours talking about that. And at the same time, the fact of having a lab, I don't know if you know, maybe they can explain what it is, if not everybody knows. In this university, there is a lab that is called Policy, Design Policy Lab. And I make my best compliments, because in my knowledge, I've seen only one other design policy lab. That is the one that they have in Denmark. But Denmark is a very strange place, and also the lab in that case has been done by the government. So the fact that the university has a lab that is called Design Policy Lab, and they try to say to the policymaker, hey, look, designer can have something to say in facing complex issues related to making policy, and in some way, given that they are working, they are recognized for that. It's really, I do make my best compliments, because it's not obvious at all. It's quite unique, I would say. More or less, this is all. Beyond that, I knew the Italy money, but this is another.
Vamos a hacer un break de unos 15 minutos para después volver al panel de los casos. Gracias.